Morning, all of you. Friends, in this lecture, I'm going to discuss with you the highlights of Union Budget 23-24, which was released on 1st of February. These highlights have been sourced from the very reliable PIB website, right? And if I'm audible and visible to all of you, please give me a thumbs up in the comment section. So guys, as you can understand that this is a very important topic, budget, and we need to understand this topic in its entirety. हमें इस टॉपिक को पूरा समझना है, अच्छे से समझना है, which is precisely what we are going to do in this particular lecture, right? So initially I thought that I will discuss opinions and editorials related to the budget, but then I thought that before I start discussing the opinions and editorials related to the budget, I must first help you in understanding the basic nitty-gritties of the budget, the basic announcements of the budget, right? The basic highlights of the budget should be discussed before I discuss anything else with you, right? So Chavi, Anjali, as well as everybody else, let us quickly move ahead and first discuss all the highlights, right? And it is going to be a number intensive summary over here, a fact intensive summary, right? Because see, I believe that ultimately in the exam, most important than anything else, or more important than anything else, is some numbers, some facts, some key takeaways. So even if you are attempting a multi-choice questions examination and MCQ examination, your facts and figures and numbers and trends and all those things should be there in your memory. And if you're writing answers, right, if you're undertaking mains answer writing, let us say, so in that case also numbers need to be really strong, right? That's called evidence-based answer writing in my opinion. So these numbers that I'm going to present in front of you, going ahead in the next couple of days as we discuss a lot of articles, right? So we will be able to sort of appreciate these numbers, understand these numbers, and from today itself I'll start helping you out in terms of how you can use these numbers and what these numbers are trying to basically tell you, right? So just keep in mind that don't just be afraid, don't just be very tight when numbers are coming across you. Use that as an opportunity to become well versed with the ground reality. Use that as an opportunity to really understand what's happening in the Indian economy. All right. So let us start. Right. So I'll be sharing this document one way or the other with you, all of you guys. Right. So you can use the highlighted document, and I would advise that you take micro notes along the lecture. Right. So don't just watch the lecture, take micro notes along the lecture. All right. So let us start. So first and foremost, right off the bat, per capita income. So per capita income, it has doubled to 1.97 lakh in around 9 years. What is the importance of this number? So per capita income is basically calculated by taking the national income in the numerator, right? Per capita income is basically calculated by taking the national income in the numerator and dividing it by the average population of that year, right? And it gives you a sense of the standard of living of the population. So this is how you calculate the per capita income, right? And like I said, that per capita income, it gives you a sense of the standard of living of the population, that what is the standard of living, what is the standard of consumption, what kind of income in general people are having. You see, the more the income, the more people are going to be able to, let us say, purchase their needs, purchase whatever they aspire for, and that's a good thing, right? So higher the per capita income, the better it is, right? So generally speaking, we would like to see that this number increases more and more. All right. So this number is a very good indicator of the general progress that we have made, but we cannot rely too much upon this number, because you understand that not everybody in India is having 1.97 lakh rupees as an annual income, right? So I may be having an income which is actually 1.97 lakh, or 1.97 crores or something like that. And there can be many people who may be having an income of only 40,000-50,000 rupees or even less than that per annum, right? So it's not as if that this number per capita income is telling us what everybody is earning, but it's giving us a sense of the average income of our population. So have this figure in mind, right? It can be helpful. It can be helpful in showing that we have made some decent progress in the last 9 years, right? If you talk about the size of the Indian economy, right, So we have been able to grow ourselves from being the 10th largest to 5th largest economy in the last 9 years. All right. Again, what we are talking about is the size of our nominal GDP. Please understand, we are talking about the nominal GDP over here. What is nominal GDP, right? So nominal GDP, you must understand, basically it gives you a sense, right? It gives you a sense of where we stand, right? So far as our production levels are concerned, right? So I'll just write it out over here so that when you download the document, you can understand the discussion that I have done over here based on this document itself, right? So we are essentially talking about nominal GDP over here, right? I'm going to leave a lot of commentary over here so that you all can make a sense out of it. So you know it as a matter of fact that nominal GDP is basically the value of final goods and services produced in your economy in a given year. That is what nominal GDP is. You know that nominal GDP is calculated at the market prices. So our nominal GDP has expanded, right? We were the 10th largest in 2014, I think, and today we are the 5th largest. So yes, some progress definitely has been made by the Indian economy, right? Definitely there is a lot more to be achieved. Now there are two ways of interpreting this number. First is to go wow, that oh wow, we have become 5th largest, we are the 10th largest. And then there is this another way of interpreting this number, which is a more realistic way of interpreting this number, is that this progress would have happened, right? Indian economy had a natural growth momentum or has a natural growth momentum. We get a 6 to 7% का real GDP का growth, and generally speaking we get a 10-11% का nominal GDP का growth. We get it, right? So it is quite natural for us to grow, right? We have been growing for the last 15, 20, 25, 30 years, and we will keep going for the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And going ahead, our GDP is going to only increase. So that is something which is bound to happen, right? And there is no real, surprise over here. Yeah, had we grown faster, had we grown at double digit, in terms of real GDP every year, that would have been really fantastic, but that never happened, right? So yeah, either you can celebrate this number a lot, or you can just be a little realistic that okay, this kind of growth momentum was expected, is expected, and is going to continue no matter who is in charge, right? So that's the idea over here, right? Another very important number that has been shared is regarding EPFO membership, saying that it has doubled to 27 crores, right? Now, what is the relevance of this number, right? So this number is basically trying to talk about formal jobs creation, right? Why did the government share this number right off the bat, right? Why are they talking about EPFO membership? Because generally speaking, when we talk about the quality of jobs in India, so we say that most of the jobs that are there in India, they are poor quality jobs. They don't have a lot of social security, etc. Right? So if we can have greater social security, then that's good. Are you getting my point? So that's precisely what they're trying to highlight over here, that they have been able to take steps to broaden the social security net, right? So people have become part of employees provident fund organization. That provident fund organization provides some kind of a pension support to the workers when they are not able to work, right? So having that membership doubled is a good thing, right? And going ahead, we would like this number to only increase. So when you are undertaking answer writing, or when you are attempting answers, do realize that we have made a lot of progress in terms of expanding the base of EPFO membership, and we would like to expand that further more going ahead. That's the idea that needs to be kept in mind over here, right? So I hope that you all are following, and you all are understanding what I'm doing over here. I'm trying to help you make sense out of these numbers. So even before we start reading the op-ed articles, I want you to understand what the story is behind each and every number over here, right? If we speak in terms of digital payments, right? So there were 7,400 crore digital payments. This is not the total amount of digital transactions. This is the total number of digital transactions, right? And the total digital payments were worth rupees 126 lakh crore, right? So 126 lakh crore worth of digital payments took place through UPI, right? So basically, why is this relevant over here? This is relevant over here because we are trying to bring about the digitization, right, of the Indian economy, right? We are not just trying to bring about the digitization of the Indian economy, right? But we are basically trying to push digital finance way ahead in India, right? We're trying to push digital finance way ahead in India for the very simple reason we want to bring about financial inclusion. We want to keep a track of as many payments as we can going ahead so that we can make a sense out of what's really happening in the Indian economy, who is really spending how much and where, right? So we will get a better sense of what's happening in the informal economy. We will be able to track people ka expenditure, etc. So we really want to push digital payments ahead. So we have been trying to do that since a very long time. That's precisely why we did demonetization also, rightly or wrongly, right? So the idea over here is that this is a good thing. Of course, we need to put this in the perspective. We need to understand these numbers better, which I'm sure we will be able to do via the opinion and editorials. So I hope that I'm audible and visible to all of you. Prashant, Ashi, Alisha, as well as everybody else who is present in the lecture, could you just confirm, right, that I should be audible and visible to you, right? There was some brief disruption in the OBS over here, but everything looks fine now. So 11.7 crore household toilets have been constructed under Swachh Bharat mission, right? So, so whenever you're talking about, let us say, health, right? So whenever you're talking about health, right, or whenever you're talking about reducing the disease burden in the country, right? So this number becomes important, right? Health, disease, etc., right? This number becomes important in that context, right? Then they have said that there were 9.6 crore LPG connections which have been provided under the Ujjwala scheme, right? 220 crore COVID vaccinations have been provided, right, of 102 crore persons, right? So all these numbers over here, right, they're very important from the perspective of health. Like for instance, LPG connection is a very important step that the government has taken to reduce indoor pollution, right? And if you are able to reduce indoor pollution, right, so all those women or anybody for that matter, because anybody can be involved in household work, right? So anybody who's involved in household work will not be exposed to a lot of, let us say, unnecessary smoke that will get generated when you are burning, let us say, traditional sources of, traditional sources of energy such as, cow dung and, all the all the all the dry wood that we collect and burn, right? So that's important from that sense, right? So that really helps in improving the quality of life, right? Of course, COVID vaccination, etc., that's also again important from the perspective of health, from the perspective of reducing the disease burden, right? So whenever you're talking about, let us say, health, or whenever you're talking about all these things, so do try to talk about these figures if possible, right? That these steps have been taken and these are positive steps that have been taken, right? So just try to talk about this, right? PM Jandhan accounts. So there are 47.8 crore PM Jandhan accounts, right? We need to obviously dive deep into this number, see how many of these accounts are operative. So now a lot of these accounts are operative. See what is the average balance in these accounts. See whether the banks are finding these accounts profitable, net profitable or not. But the positive point over here is that so many Jandhan bank accounts have been opened, so we have been able to push the agenda of financial inclusion ahead. So you need to link financial inclusion with these Jandhan accounts, right? If I speak about insurance cover, so 44.6 crore persons have been provided insurance under PM Suraksha Bima and PM Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. Now this number needs to be looked at from the point of view of social security, right? Like I explained to you the number regarding EPFO, right? That we have been able to add so many lakh accounts in EPFO. That's important from social security perspective. This number is also important from social security perspective, right? That if because you know that in India the awareness and the acceptance of insurance is on the lower side, right? So if you are able to have so many crore people covered under any kind of a Bima Yojana, which is, let us say, sponsored by the government of India and the state governments, etc. So if we are able to cover people, and if people become jagrut, if they become aware, and if they start adopting more and more of insurance, then that's always a very, very good thing, right? So that's a positive sign over here, right? Thereafter, we have been able to do a cash transfer of 2.2 lakh crore to our 11.4 crore farmers under the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, right? So of course, we are talking about that 6,000 rupees wala scheme. So, right, you must be knowing that the government of India is transferring 6,000 rupees to the accounts of most farmers in India. So 2,000 rupees is being transferred every 4 months, right, or something like that, right? So the idea over here is that, or 1,500 rupees is being transferred every 3 months. I'm not, I just sort of get mixed up in these numbers, but basically 6,000 rupees per annum is getting transferred, right? Now the idea over here is that we can't accept this number at face value, because when we are going to read opinion articles, etc., so somebody will point out that this PM Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme is full of problems, right? That the number of transfers are going down. There are a lot of ghost transfers or ghost beneficiaries that are there in the system, right? That the amount that is getting transferred per installment is going down, and we don't I mean, at least I don't know why this is happening, because somebody had filed a right to information RTI application, and somebody had gotten this number out from the government, that how much is getting transferred per installment, share that number. So when that number came out, so it was quite shocking that that number is going down. So we cannot accept any of these numbers, because these numbers themselves will not be able to say anything unless and until you paint a story out of it. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to paint a negative story out of this. What I'm basically trying to say over here is that you need to understand that there is a story behind these numbers, right? Which we'll discuss through the opinion and editorial articles going ahead, right? Moving ahead, this is something which is very important, right? For essay writing also, as well as for general studies, as well as for various other written parts of the examination, right? So there are 7 priorities of the budget, right? So 7 priorities of the budget have been they have been given the title of Saptarishi. We keep coming up with these new jargons every year, right? So now we are having this word Saptarishi. So this Saptarishi is about inclusive development, right? It's about last mile delivery. It's about infrastructure. It's about investment. It's about unleashing the potential, right? It's about green growth. It's about youth power. It's about financial sector. So you will have to basically commit it to your memory, right? That these are the 7 priority areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, something, yeah. So these are the 7 priority areas, for instance, right? So I hope that you are understanding how this can be useful for you, right? Then there is this clean plant program, right? So we are going to provide 2,200 crores for to boost availability of disease-free quality planting material for high-value horticultural crops. This can be very important. Why this can be very important? For, let us say, increasing the farmers' income, right? Because you know that most of our farms are like, small farms. So on small farms, if you grow low value crops, then your revenue and profits are on the lower side. But on your small farms, if you are able to grow, let us say, high value crops, so then your revenue and profit can be on the higher side. So as much as possible, especially for our small and marginal farmers, we need to push ahead this kind of a program, which with the help of which we can provide disease-free and quality planting material, and they can undertake the production of high-value horticultural crops. So that's like very, very important. If we can do that, then that's really, really great, right? So just keep that in mind. Apart from that, we will be establishing new nursing colleges, right? So these new nursing colleges will be established along with the medical colleges which have been established since 2014. So this will help in improving the number of paramedics, because you know that the number of paramedics in India, let us say per lakh of population, we are on the lower side of the world average, right? If you If you compare the number of doctors in India per lakh of India's population, you compare the number of nurses in India per lakh of India's population, we are having a real shortage over here. You can look at the latest figures provided by WHO. So if we are taking this step, then this step is in the right direction. We need more of it, right? We will be recruiting 38,800 teachers and support staff for 740 Eklavya model residential schools. And these EMRS, that is Eklavya model residential schools, they basically cater to the requirements of scheduled tribe students. They are basically located in those areas where there is a significant bunch of tribal population, right? And those schools have been created, but those schools are not adequately staffed. Many a times it has been observed that those schools are not adequately staffed. So if you're taking this step, then this step is in the right direction, right? For PM Awas Yojana, they have increased the outlay quite substantially to rupees 79,000 crore. So what I believe is that this is the final push, right, for the PM Awas Yojana, which has been going on and on and on since a very long time. So this is probably the final push just before the general election, right? That let us try to build as many houses as possible, right? And which is a good thing, right? Because building houses can really improve the standard of living for those who are at the bottom of the ladder, right? So that's a very good sign over here, right? That they are wanting to finish this scheme. That's a good sign over here, right? Capital outlay of 2.4 lakh crore has been provided for railways, right, which is again the highest. So of course we need to dive deep into this number and see how this number is being spent, but increasing the capital outlay, increasing the capital expenditure is always very helpful, because it helps in improving the productive capacity. It helps in improving the infrastructure availability. We will be able to improve safety. We should be able to improve speed. We should be able to lower the cost of transportation via railways, etc. So all these things are good things, right? An urban infrastructure development fund will be established, right? So you can use it while talking about urbanization. So UIDF will be established, right? So what basically we are planning to do is that there is something called as priority sector lending, PSL, right? So through priority sector lending, banks are forced to lend to, let us say, the vulnerable section of the society, to the small and marginal farmers, etc., etc., right? So the idea over here is that when we are not able to lend as much as the target is, right? So the target may be here and we are here. So there may be a shortfall in priority sector lending, right? So what to do with that money? So we were supposed to lend to farmers and scheduled caste and scheduled tribe and to women and to, borrowers from certain sectors such as, let us say, renewable energy, etc. So we were supposed to lend to those priority sectors, but there is a shortfall. We couldn't lend as much as the target was. So what to do with the additional money? So you can park the additional money in this UIDF, right? It will be managed by the National Housing Bank, right? And it will be used to create urban infrastructure in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So it will take the pressure off tier 1 cities. Right now, if you look at your tier 1 cities, so they are overburdened, overcrowded, right? And they need to be, supported. So you cannot just support by cramming more infrastructure into tier 1 cities, cramming more infrastructure into tier 1 cities. You can support tier 1 cities by growing alternative cities, growing alternative areas of opportunity. So if we are creating this UIDF fund for tier 2, tier 3 cities, then that's really good. One thing that we really need to understand is that what happened to that smart cities mission. Because I'm not very sure if the government has spoken about it. So suddenly have we abandoned that idea or what? Another idea which I don't think has been clearly mentioned is the doubling of farmers' income. So we need to see whether we have abandoned that idea, or is that idea still relevant? I don't know. So we need to just sort of figure out what happened, because our exam can ask us that question, that what happened to smart cities mission, and then we will be blank. So we really need to know that did the government just abandon it or what, right? Then there is this entity DigiLocker, which will be set up by MSMEs, large businesses, trusts, right? So that they can store their documents online, right? Ease of doing business wise, this will be helpful. 100 labs will be set up, right, for 5G services based application development, right? So that opportunities and business models, etc., can be developed, because 5G is the next thing, right? And we are basically a service oriented economy, so we would like to make a lot of progress in that direction. 500 new waste to wealth plants will be established under the Gobardhan scheme, right? So this scheme basically collects a lot of biological and agrological resources, which is basically waste in primarily rural areas, and we are converting it into let us say gas, which can be used like as a clean cooking fuel or something like that, right? So the idea over here is that we are going to spend 10,000 crore rupees on this, right? And 5% compressed biogas mandate to be introduced for all organizations marketing natural and biogas. So basically, they are trying to say over here that uh, these plants, whatever gas that they are generating, they will be able to sell it to somebody, right? So if you are having organizations which are marketing natural and biogas, maybe your HPCLs and BPCLs, etc., right? Then they will have to purchase this kind of biogas from wherever it is produced, let us say, right? So again, it will help in augmenting the incomes in rural areas, providing cleaner sources of energy in rural areas, and it will go a long way in making rural areas Atmanirbhar energy wise, right? So that's again a step in the right direction, right? Center will facilitate 1 crore farmers to adopt natural farming, right? Over the next 3 years, 10,000 bio input resource centers will be set up, right? National level micro fertilizers will be distributed, pesticide manufacturing network will be established, right? Now I am not able to understand this a little bit over here, right? We already have something called as KVKs, right? Kisan Vikas Kendra or Krishi Vikas Kendras or something like that. So when we already have that, so why not talk about them? What is this bio input resource center new thing that we are going to create? So is this the KVKs which will now become bio input resource centers, or is this bio input resource center going to come up apart from KVKs? And then if that is going to be the case, then are we going to maintain two types of centers, KVKs on the one hand and bio input resource centers on the other hand? Or are we just trying to act smart and we don't want to use the old term KVK and want to act fancy? So we have used this new term bio input resource center, because this is deeply problematic, right? It is deeply problematic because it creates a lot of confusion. Like there is a confusion in my mind, right? I am a layman. So similarly, there is going to be a confusion in the minds of many other folks that what is going to happen in two KVKs, right? So I sincerely believe that all these shenanigans need to be stopped, and we really need to build upon what we have already built. So if we are actually talking about the old infrastructure, we should actually talk about the old infrastructure and say that, okay, that is the new term over here, or we should not really just introduce new jargon for the sake of introducing new jargon. That's just my opinion when I read all these things, right? Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 will be launched. It's a very big news, right? So the idea over here is that courses related to industrial revolution 4.0, right? So coding, AI, robotics, mechatronics, IoT, 3D printing, drone and soft skills. So these core skills will be developed, which is a very positive sign, keeping in mind the trend going ahead, keeping in mind the requirements going ahead. 30 Skill India International Centers will be established, right? To train youth for international opportunities. We would like to export some labor, which is always a good thing because we have surplus labor in our country. We may not be able to utilize it fully, so it makes more sense to export it, right? We are going to have, let us say, a revamped credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs, right? Which will take effect from 1st April 2023. For that, 9,000 crores will be pumped into this particular scheme. You can understand that MSMEs have been facing a lot of financial stress of late. They have not been able to, let us say, secure credit, and they have not been able to, let us say, repay their credit on time, etc. So banks need to have some kind of assurances from the government before they lend to MSMEs, right? So that's the kind of assurance that will be given through this credit guarantee scheme, that banks, you lend to MSMEs. If they default, if they are not able to pay up, then we are there for you. We will make your losses good, right? And we'll take care of you. That's the idea over here, right? So it will enable collateral free guaranteed credit of 2 lakh crore, right? And it will reduce the cost of credit by about 1%. So like I said, that availability of credit should go up, at least ideally it should go up, right? And the cost of credit should go down. Both these things should happen, right? Then we are talking about central processing centers, right? So the idea over here is that faster response to companies through centralized handling of various forms. So basically compliance through the Companies Act, etc. Should become more easier. So the ease of doing business should improve through these centralized processing centers coming up. right? Maximum deposit limit for senior citizen savings schemes has been enhanced to 15 lakh to 30 lakhs, right? So this is a very positive development, because see, what was happening was that uh, these vulnerable sections of society, or the traditional savers or the small savers, right? They don't like to expose themselves to unnecessary risks in the stock market and all of those things. They are not really interested in that. They would like to have a source whereby they could invest their money, and that money could attract, let us say, a decent rate of interest, right? So in that sense, your Sukanya Samriddhi schemes and senior citizen savings schemes and post office savings schemes and all these savings schemes and the Kisan Vikas Patra and national savings certificates. So all these small savings schemes that the government runs, this is very helpful for your traditional savers, conventional savers, right? Old timers, right? Because in these schemes there is safety, and there is this charm of a decent level of return that is provided. Now, this senior citizen savings scheme ke andar, if the maximum deposit limit has been enhanced, and I am a senior citizen, and I was, let us say, not happy that my 15 lakh limit is exhausted, I have put the entire 15 lakhs in, I have more money, what do I do with it, right? So now my problem is solved, that ceiling has been enhanced from 15 lakh to 30 lakh. It gives me an option to save with the government in a safe manner and earn, let us say, a decent amount of return. So it may not be very fancy return, but it's safe return. And that's very important for a huge chunk of our population. We are saying that we will adhere to fiscal deficit, right? We are saying that we will adhere to fiscal deficit going ahead. So it will be below 4.5% by 25-26, right? Which is a good thing. Fiscal deficit indicates the borrowing requirement of the government. So we have been undertaking fiscal consolidation in the last 2-3 years. We have been bringing this number of fiscal deficit down. So in this financial year, the number was 6.4% of GDP, right? And in the next financial year, the number is 5.9% of the GDP. So we have been able to consistently bring fiscal deficit down, which is again a good sign. There is this agriculture accelerator fund that we are going to set up so that we can encourage startups in agricultural domain, so that we can support entrepreneurs in rural areas as well. Again, a good sign, right? We want to make India a global hub for Shri Anna. Now, this Shri Anna is just a euphemism. It's just a fancy word, jargon which has been introduced. We're talking about jowar, bajra and ragi. We're talking about millets. So these millets are very hardy crops, very nutritious crops, right? They are easy to grow, and they give you a big boost in terms of immunity and in terms of, let us say, improving your overall health, right? So we want to become a global hub for Shri Anna. So for that, Indian Institute of Millet Research in Hyderabad, it will be supported as a center of excellence, right? So they will generate best practices and share it with the rest of the country and the rest of the world, right? 20 lakh crore agricultural credit is targeted, right? So that is something which I have always told you, that every subsequent year the government increases the target of agricultural credit by 7 to 8%, right? So this year also we have seen that the amount of money that will be pumped into agriculture in the form of credit, the target has been increased to 20 lakh crores, right? We will create a new sub-scheme within the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. We will put in 6,000 crore, right? And we will enable activities of fishermen, fish vendors, micro, small enterprises, right? And we'll try to make the fisheries sector more efficient, right? We want to have a more integrated supply chain, right? We want the fishes to get, to be frozen, to be processed, to be canned, to be added value to, and we want them to be, let us say, sold within India and outside India. So to that extent, this investment will be helpful, right? We are digital public infrastructure for agriculture is being created, right? So it will be an open source, open standard, interoperable public good, right? So it will help in creating farmer centric solutions. So basically it will allow, let us say, your startups, etc., who are focused upon agriculture to use this digital public infrastructure. So an agri-tech industry will come up. Basically, it will try to solve the input and the output problem of the farmers, right? So farmers need a lot of inputs. So those problems will be solved. Farmers need to sell their output. So those problems will be solved better through these digital public infrastructure based organizations. Now, another thing which I feel is lacking in this budget is that probably we have just forgotten about those 3 farm laws, right? There is no mention of those 3 farm laws anywhere in the budget, right? So I don't know what the government is thinking regarding those farm laws, suddenly we bring a policy, suddenly we roll the policy back, and suddenly we forget about the policy, is what it seems, right? Well, because I think that we should try to push those farm laws ahead with consensus. There has to be a dialogue. Unfortunately, I don't think that there was any announcement in our budget regarding what we want to do regarding those reforms, right? We want to bring about computerization of 63,000 packs, right? So, which is again a good thing, because these packs, that is primary agricultural credit societies, they play some role in terms of pushing credit into the farm sector, into the rural sector. So that's again a good sign, right? The idea over here is that massive decentralized storage capacity will be set up to help farmers store their produce, realize remunerative prices. Now we need to see the blueprint of this strategy, right? That what do you mean by massive decentralized storage capacity? Who is going to create this? Is it the FCI or is it the private sector, right? So who is going to create this? Where is it going to be created? What kind of an infrastructure are we going to see in this? What kind of money is going to be pumped into this? So we need to wait for more details regarding this before we start cheering or criticizing, right? Sickle cell anemia needs to be eliminated, so a mission will be launched. Good, right? Public and private medical research will be encouraged, right? So ICMR labs will be used for encouraging collaborative research and innovation. New program to promote research in pharmaceuticals will be launched, right? 10 lakh crores of capital investment will be done in the economy, which is a very big thing, right? Because you know that the government expenditure can be of two types. It can be capital expenditure or revenue expenditure. So you know that capital expenditure is more productive. It helps in generation of infrastructure. It helps in improving the productive capacities of your economy. It helps in improving the potential GDP of your economy. So if you are putting 10 lakh crores for capital investment, right, that's substantial, right? It's an increase of 33% for the third year. We have increased the capital investment outlay by a significant amount, right? So it will be very good in terms of improving India's growth potential, creating jobs in the economy, and crowding in private investment. Because see, like for example, let us say if high quality infrastructure is provided in the form of roads, ports, railways, electricity, etc., etc., then the private sector automatically sees opportunities to enter, and they also bring their investment in, right? So that's a very good sign over here, right? Then aspirational blocks program covering 500 blocks, right? So it was launched for saturation of essential government services. So that's a good thing, right? So we would want these kinds of services, right? These basic services regarding health, nutrition, education, agriculture, etc., to be available across the length and breadth of the country. So we have an aspirational districts program. Now I think what we are doing is that we are looking at a disaggregated level, and we are trying to identify blocks which are lagging behind. So we are probably working well with the districts. Now we want to work well with the blocks as well. So the basic idea is that a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So we can identify the weakest blocks and the most backward blocks, and if we can pull them ahead, then we'll basically be able to pull the entire country ahead. So that's the idea over here. It's a good idea, right? 15,000 crore will be spent for implementation of the PVTG development mission, that is the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, PVTG, right? So the fact that we have identified PVTGs and their concerns, and we have put money, that's again a very good sign, because they have problems associated with isolation and backwardness, PVTGs, right? So we don't want to change their culture, we don't want to erode their ways of life, but we just want to make sure that if they are suffering from health burden or lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of facilities, right, then at least those things can be and should be taken care of. So if we are having this money, hopefully it will be spent actually upon the PVTGs at the ground level, right? Investment of 75,000 crore, including 15,000 crore from private sources, right? 100 critical transport infrastructure projects for last and first mile connectivity for ports, coal, steel, fertilizer, and food grain sector. So you can see a whiff of public-private partnership over here. So the government and the private sector together will come and spend this money to make sure that there is seamless connectivity in the coal sector, seamless connectivity in the steel sector, seamless connectivity in the fertilizer sector, etc. Right? New infrastructure finance secretariat will be established, right, within the government. So it will sort of give some kind of a boost to attracting private investment, some kind of a permanent infrastructure, some kind of a permanent uh, uh, some 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 strategies, some models, some pathways, some best practices will be created, and they will be institutionalized, right? So private investment will always have a door to knock upon, right? Or there will be a department within the government which will be focusing upon the private investments. So that's a good sign, right? District institutes of education and training, they will be developed as institutes of excellence. Fantastic, right? So this is related to education. A national digital library for children and adolescents will be set up, right? Again related to education, right? 5,300 crore will be provided to Upper Bhadra project, right? And we want to provide sustainable micro irrigation, right? And we want to fill up surface tanks for drinking water. So I just need to figure out, probably with your help, that what is this Upper Bhadra project, which region is this going to be implemented in, right? And the idea over here is that we would want these kinds of projects to be operated as much as possible across the country, because everybody needs micro irrigation more than any, especially your farmers where there is no irrigation facility available much. They need a lot of these kinds of projects. We need to see where it will be implemented, right? There will be a Bharat shared repository of inscription, right? So it will be set up in the Digital Epigraphy Museum, right? So we basically want to digitize and permanently store 1 lakh ancient inscriptions. Again, a good sign. We'll be able to preserve our culture, our heritage, right? If you look at the effective capital expenditure, so government of India will be spending roughly 10 lakh crores, and they will also be providing a lot of grant in aid to the state government for their own capital expenditure needs. So the government of India's expenditure plus the money that it is supplying to the states put together will be approximately 13.7 lakh crores, right? So that's a huge boost for capital expenditure. To support the states, right? To speak about federal finance, right? To support the states, so this 50-year interest-free loan that we are giving to the state governments, it will be continued for 1 more year, right? So that greater amount of investment can be pushed into the infrastructure sector, right? Encouragement is being given to states and cities so that they can undertake urban planning reforms, right? And actions, right? So that sustainable cities could be created, right? So again, this is related to center-state relationship. We have already spoken about the Urban Infrastructure Development Fund, and now again we are talking about urban planning reforms. What we really need is urban municipality reforms. These municipalities that are working in urban areas, they are in a lot of financial stress. So we really need to focus upon that more than anything else, right? So far as the downtrodden or the vulnerable section of society is concerned, right? So we want to reduce their drudgery. So we want to have machine holes rather than manholes, right? So we want to undertake 100% mechanical desludging of septic tanks and sewers, right? So again, that's a very helpful step. I don't know what will be the impact on job creation in that sector, right? But definitely it will reduce the drudgery of those who are involved in that activity. So we need to think about those who are working in that sector in a more holistic manner. So while we have mechanized their tasks, which is a very positive sign, much required, but we also need to see what kind of an alternative skill development and what kind of an alternative job development we can do for them. That's also something that we need to look at, right? Then there is this I Got Karma Yogi, which is basically an integrated online training platform, right? So that the government employees can go through a process of continuous learning and they can upgrade their skills so that they can actually help in cutting edge governance and all those things. So I Got Karma Yogi has been mentioned, right? So far as ease of doing business is concerned, so government says that 39,000 compliances have been reduced, 3,400 legal provisions have been decriminalized, right? So that's obviously a good sign so far as ease of doing business is concerned, right? Jan Vishwas bill will be created to amend 42 central acts, right? So that trust-based governance can be pushed ahead, right? 3 centers of excellence for artificial intelligence will be set up. So you can see this announcement and tie it up with the skills wala announcement, the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0 wala announcement, right? So over there also we spoke about artificial intelligence. Now again we are speaking about artificial intelligence over here. The 3 centers of 3 centers for excellence in artificial intelligence will be set up in top education institutions, right? So that we can make AI work for India or something like that, right? Then we will be focusing on national data governance policy, right? So that innovation and research can be pushed ahead by startups and academia. So we need a data policy. How is my anonymized data going to be used? So what is the meaning of anonymized data? That the data will not reveal my identity, but I would still want that anonymized data to be protected, right? I would still want it to be within India, and I would still want to make sure that that data is not being used in such a manner that anybody can, let us say, harm my interests. So we need a policy, and that policy is being spoken about over here, right? One-stop solution for reconciliation, updation of identity will be created, right? So that apart from that, the permanent account number or the PAN number will be used as a common identifier for all digital systems, which is again a good thing, right? Because that is the intent of creating PAN in the first place. You should not need any other number if the PAN was created. But then what did we do? That along the way, we created a number of other identifiers also, right? For your MSMEs and for your companies, etc., etc. So thankfully, there is some rationality and some sensibility now prevailing in the government, and it is saying that the PAN number will be used as a common identifier, right? For let us say entities operating in India, right? Apart from that, they have said that 95% of the forfeited amount. So the idea is that MSMEs supply to governments, MSMEs supply to government undertakings, right? They supply goods and services to government and government undertakings. Now, if I am a supplier and you are a buyer, and if I am supplying crap, right, then obviously you are going to penalize me. If I am supplying suboptimal goods, if I am supplying goods which are of lower quality, then obviously you are going to penalize me, right? So there is a penalty amount, right? So the government is saying that those MSMEs who were upon whom we imposed that penalty, so we are going to refund that penalty, right? That's the idea over here, right? So they are saying that 95% of the forfeited amount, which was related to performance, security, etc., right? So what is performance security? That I have given an assurance to you that I am going to perform up to the desired standards. So that money that got forfeited will be returned back to MSMEs. We're basically trying to support MSMEs, right? Apart from that, result-based financing will be done so that so in certain sectors, this is an experiment that we are doing, right? To see whether outcome-based financing can work or not. So outcome-based budgeting is something which we have been experimenting with on and off, on and off, on and off, right? So this is another one of those experiments over here that we are talking about result-based financing. So we just changed the terminology. So rather than talk about outcome-based budgeting, we're talking about result-based financing, right? So they are saying that if the results are there, then we'll provide finance, or we'll see the results and then provide more finance. That's how it should be, but that's not how it is. But that's how it should be for all the areas, but it's not like that, right? Phase 3 of the e-courts project will be launched, outlay of 7,000 crores, so that electronic courts can bring about greater efficiency. R&D grants will be provided for lab-grown diamonds sectors, right? So this LGD lab-grown diamond sectors will be encouraged, right? So LGD seeds is something that we are trying to indigenously produce. Machines is something that we are trying to indigenously produce, right? So we want to reduce our dependence on imports, right? For these lab-grown diamonds, because it's becoming more and more difficult to, let us say, mine diamonds. So there is this new idea of lab-grown diamonds. So we don't want to be left behind in that, because we have a very huge diamond processing and diamond-related industry working in western parts of the country, especially in Gujarat, right? So we would want their livelihoods to be secured going ahead as well. For that, keeping that in mind, this LGD sector is very important. Keeping in mind the requirement for clean energy and for sustainable growth, etc., right? So annual production of 5 million metric tons under green hydrogen mission will be targeted by 2030, so that we can transit to a low carbon economy, right? We can lower the import of fossil fuel. So there is a future which is going to come in the next 10, 15, 20 years, where you will see that the urban mobility is completely based on hydrogen, and hydrogen is being used as an energy source quite frequently. So electric vehicles plus hydrogen, etc., right? So that should really help in cleaning up the environment, etc., right? 35,000 crore will be provided for energy security, transition and net zero objectives, right? a battery energy storage system will be promoted, obviously, because electric vehicles need battery energy storage systems. So we need to work on that, right? 20,700 crore will be provided so that renewable energy grid integration can be done for Ladakh, because Ladakh is a very important source of solar energy. So we would like to make sure that Ladakh is connected to the rest of the country, for which we are providing money, right? Then there is this PM Pranam scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Program for Restoration, Awareness, Nourishment and Amelioration of Mother Earth. So it will be launched to incentivize state and union to promote alternative fertilizers and balanced use of chemical fertilizers. So I feel that this PM Pranam has got to do a lot with the Save Soil campaign that was run in India and abroad by Sadhguru, right? So I think that this PM Pranam is somewhere linked over there, that we basically want to restore the health of soil more than anything else, right? Which is why we are talking about alternative fertilizers, such as, let us say, biofertilizers and more natural fertilizers which are less harmful, and making balanced use of chemical fertilizers. So I think that is related to that more than anything else, right? Apart from that, there is this Mishti thing that was announced. So this Mishti is basically a mangrove initiative for shoreline habitats and tangible outcomes. So you know that mangroves are really important ecosystems. They are important ecosystems in the sense that they are really rich in biodiversity. Mangroves, they help in protecting the shoreline from erosion, right? They protect the shoreline from untoward incidents during cyclones, and in the rare occurrence of a tsunami, those mangroves can be very helpful, right? So the idea is that we just want to make sure that, and of course, mangroves play a very important role in urban areas in terms of soaking up the excess rainfall that city may witness, or that urban area may witness, right? So mangroves are very important ecosystems. So keeping that in mind, right, we have launched this Mishti, right? We'll be using Manrega and Campa funds, and we'll basically be protecting the health of mangroves, right? A lot of these mangroves are regularly under threat because of a lot of infrastructure projects that get implemented in urban areas. So hopefully we will not threaten those mangroves, and we'll probably be able to protect those mangroves, right? We'll be launching a green credit program under the Environment Protection Act, right? So that we can incentivize, mobilize resources for sustainable and responsive action. Then there is this Amrit Dharohar scheme, right? It will be implemented over next 3 years. So we want to increase the use of wetlands, enhance biodiversity, carbon stock, ecotourism opportunities, etc. So Amrit Dharohar, Green Credit Program, Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitat and Tangible Outcomes, right? Incomes. These are good environment related steps, right? Then we'll have a unified Skill India digital platform, right? So we'll try to enable demand-based formal skilling, right? We'll be linking with employers, including MSMEs, facilitate access to entrepreneurship schemes, etc. Right? Thereafter, we'll also be having direct benefit transfer under a pan-India national apprenticeship promotion scheme, right? So the idea over here is that a lot of our graduates, they have very academic and very theoretical education, completely delinked with practical realities of life, right? So the idea over here is that we want to push apprenticeship. So even while you're pursuing, random courses of BA, BCom, BSc here and there, it should be linked with some kind of apprenticeship so that you can have some on-the-job training as well, right? So we want to promote those apprentices, and we don't want to, discourage them, right? So we would like to put some kind of money in their bank accounts if they are actually availing apprenticeship. So for that, I think that it will help. So this DBT may help, right? So it will provide stipend support to 47 lakh youth in 3 years. We really need to see whether that money actually gets transferred and whether the youth is actually the beneficiary of that or not. We need to see how this will work, but it seems to be the right thing, right? 50 tourist destinations will be selected. On challenge mode, they will be developed as a complete package for domestic and foreign tourists, right? So basically, again, promotion of tourism more than anything else, right? Sector specific skilling and entrepreneurship development, they will be dovetailed along with the objectives of Dekho Apna Desh initiative. So again, we are promoting tourism over here, developing sector specific skills, entrepreneurship within that particular narrow domain. So that's again a good sign, right? tourism infrastructure and amenities will be provided in border villages, right, through Vibrant Villages program. What I believe over here is that we are trying to counter the push of China in terms of border development, border infrastructure development over here. So if you could develop border villages, if you could develop tourism infrastructure and amenities, if people can come and go to border areas regularly, so we will be able to lay a more stronger claim upon those border areas, right? In the eventuality of, let us say, a conflict in the future going ahead. So that's again a good sign over here, right? States will be encouraged to set up a unity mall. So through those, malls are basically marketplaces through which people sell stuff and people buy stuff, right? So unity mall will be set up. So what we'll be doing is that, like for instance, if a unity mall is set up in Mumbai, my city over here, so we'll have, let us say, sellers who are selling goods from Meghalaya, goods from Tripura, goods from Nagaland, goods from Arunachal, goods from Sikkim, goods from Bihar, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, etc. Right? So all these one district, one product goods, the GI tagged products, handicrafts, etc., which are not very easily available in Mumbai, let us say, should become easily available through this Unity Mall. If this Unity mall actually comes up and actually does its job, right? There is a big if over here, right? Then there is this National Financial Information Registry that will be served. It will serve as the central repository of financial and ancillary information, right? So the idea over here is that before financial institutions roll out credit, they would like to just check who the borrower is. So I think that will become possible through this registry. It will help in promoting financial inclusion, financial stability, right? So we really need to see whom we are lending to. So that probably will be brought about by establishing this National Financial Information Registry. So if you're talking about banks and making them stable and safe, etc., you can talk about this, right? Financial sector regulators. Okay, where does this go? Okay, so this goes a lot ahead, right? So all right, so let's just do this. So financial sector regulators, they will carry out a comprehensive review of existing regulation, right? And we will enhance business activities in GIFT IFSC, right? We will delegate powers under the SES Act to the International Financial Service Center Authority, so that dual regulation is avoided, dual overlap of regulators is avoided, etc. Right? So we'll be setting up a single window IT system for registration and approval, right? We'll permit acquisition financing by IFSC banking units of foreign banks, right? And we'll establish a subsidiary of Exim Bank for trade refinancing. So these are the steps which we'll be discussing in greater detail in our OPED columns. So I'll be bringing my lecture to an end over here, right? So I've discussed half of the highlights, right? And we'll discuss remaining half of the highlights in a subsequent lecture, right? That will happen tomorrow. All right. So I hope that you all will be a little regular, and I hope that I'll also be a little regular. So we'll keep continuing this initiative. Thank you so much. All the very best, and Jai Hind to all of you.